as I'm someone who's has been trying to explore and police these things, it's been a very, very difficult road for me. And other people, perhaps other movie makers, other spies, other people that are members of this cult or whatever, made other shows that some of which I was unaware of, or that I was ignoring, I guess, in the case of Farscape. And Batman Forever was actually following Stargate, which I guess it sort of rhymes with Watergate in its more ironic interpretation, shall we say. And I don't know what to make of it. I mean, it's just so crazy that the government and or Hollywood would operate this way, it seems to me. I mean, it spins back to the fraud about the nature of the moon landing and the world that we've sort of all grown up in since then, with the society harshly divided between the people who know and the people who don't know. And so there's this whole shadow world that tries to keep itself concealed with more shadows. And I'm very much opposed to this sort of thing. I mean, I think Batman's kind of cool in the purer sense of sort of what he represents. Someone who tries to police something that there doesn't exist, another sort of agency to police places where the government is failing. I mean, clearly the government has failed, and it doesn't even really pretend anymore to itself to be in service. It's all a show. They're all actors. You know, people say that Barack Obama changed his name and, you know, all this sort of stuff, just like the actors do, just like Ben Browder. And my partner's name was Robin, and we were together for about 10 years, and as far as I can tell, part of the controversy is that it was sort of arranged, and there seems to be, you know, among the people who quote-unquote know these other things, sort of arguments, and some of these things involve my other potential suitors, some of whom are still seemingly waiting in the wings, no pun intended. And this is a very, very difficult thing for me to deal with, on top of what I consider to be the more important scientific, spiritual stuff that I have discovered about the nature of the world, that I would very much like to be imparting in order to correct these issues about ignorance that seem to be so pervasive in our world. And these people listen to what is happening in my home, in my car. They follow me around, and it's really crazy. It's really, really crazy what I have to deal with just to survive these days. And when I found out about Farscape, it was like somebody pulled a pin out of a grenade. Because that's sort of how Farscape was designed, seemingly. And I'm nobody's grenade. I'm not your Jesus. I'm not here to save you. I'm not here to sacrifice myself for you. It's not what I'm about. I think the people who worship the guy who was nailed to a tree for trying to do good things and see that as a good act our trouble. I think Jesus should have wanted his oppressors to be killed. That's my personal opinion. I think he was misrepresented. Assuming there was a man with that name that did that sort of thing. If you want to compare me to a prophet, you should probably compare me to Moses. And I see the insidious bullshit that's happening in our government, in the shadow government, to be the sort of thing that deserves a holy war to purify this sort of thing. And, you know, I'm not saying go kill somebody. I'm not saying do anything. I'm just saying, I'm not recommending. I'm just telling you how I feel, and that is my right. And if you want to follow me and take action on that, you can take responsibility for your own behavior. But I have spent a large part of my life trying to avoid creating a cult around myself, because they seem to form spontaneously. And I had no idea, you know, when I was growing up, when I was experimenting and, you know, having these strange test results, that I was so different than the people around me. It's true. There's no denying it. It is what it is. I'm different. I'm really different. And I didn't know when I was growing up. I had no idea. I used to be really mean sort of a certain period of my life. I've been taking on more of that recently because I'm seeing it more as a healthy form. I used to be sort of mean because I wouldn't tolerate the BS that the system was throwing at me. And I used to do very, very devious but not illegal necessarily things to sort of rebel against the system. I have broken the quote-unquote drug laws that I consider to be a disservice to humanity. I don't believe that substances should be policed with the government. I think they should be socially policed. I'm a strong advocate, and if you've noticed, I'm very outspoken when I see people saying things about substances that I don't agree with. I'm very vocal about it, and I think that everyone should be, and I think that that's how it should be policed. Very adamant about that, and part of the reason is because the drug laws have been used, the drugs are being used to control people for political reasons. Not because it's good for society, not because it's good for them, because it's good for the people who control it. And this is not what they were intended to be. This is not what the drug laws were supposed to be.
Goes into this like total zone of keep it there.
How you doing? All right. Hey. What's your group about?
We're a work off-site kind of thing.
Off-site work. What sort of off-site work? What are we doing here?
Hi.
Hi. Off-site work. What's your organization?
Athleta.
Athleta.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, right on.
So yeah. Very interesting life. And like I said, I don't know who they're going to let see this video. And you know, these people, I used to refer to them as my psycho-Nazi paparazzi. And it is what it is. Athleta, she said. And yeah, I don't know. Maybe most of the people in Athleta don't really know what they're doing. That's how they operate these things. There can't be a company in the United States of any size that doesn't have someone sent in from the government, and a lot of times many governments, to manipulate the interest of these other governments and organizations. And who exactly, what exactly, I don't know. I'm not, like I said, this is not my job to police this stuff. And yeah, they get people to police it by doing the sorts of things that they've done to me without paying those people. And they create pawns, and they basically listen to people, what their concerns are. They manipulate them. They feed stories. They tell stories. They plant people in order to control and manipulate their lives. And they create terrorists, and they create, all these sorts of things that you see in the news are their productions. And this is very, very insidious, dysfunctional sorts of stuff. And, I've been concerning myself with Fukushima and the situation in Fukushima, and how most specifically recently, the radioactive materials that have been dumped into the ocean from the cores of those reactors are going to affect the Earth's hypertime translation. And this is a concept that no one at Athleta or any of the, as far as I know, anyone inside of the intelligence agencies or these other puppet groups understand. These aren't things that you get off the shelf because they're not on the shelf. They're not in the books. And, mankind started messing with nuclear power before he really understood what the atom was, before he really understood what an electron was, before he computed the implications of what the quantum mechanics, of what the particle physicists have identified as supersymmetry. Now, the implications of supersymmetry on that event, on that incident, are mind-boggling. Knowing what I know about the nature of hypertime, knowing what I know about the nature of our challenges that we're going to be facing because of this incident, are incalculable. I can't fathom it. And I've been trying to figure out a way to articulate it so that I could explain it to an individual I know from my YouTube experiences. And a gentleman down in Kentucky, I was planning on visiting when I went back home, quote unquote, that might understand it. The problem is that there are not enough people around. Even if I could pull a book off the shelf and show you that this learned individual had written about this issue, even if I could do that, who's going to understand it? And so there's this issue of consciousness and unconsciousness as it relates to these shadow organizations who are operating largely unconsciously of the damage that they're doing, which is very, very sad. And so it's a huge challenge I'm facing. I guess I'm just too interesting. But I want to get back to I'm just going to start calling it Fargate. That's a mixture of Farscape and Stargate. Fargate is, like I said, it has to do with spying and secrets and dominion, seemingly, over the secrets. And then there's the sort of spiritual warfare that underlies these holy wars